Hey everyone, welcome. It's Linda. Today I'm going to talk to you about the two rulers I recommend that every beginner starts with. It does not have to be this brand, although I will recommend that if you use this brand, it will make your life easier. But these are the two rulers that I think every beginner quilter should start with. So I like Creative Grids rulers. They're clear. They're not some funky color. They have lines in both white and in black. So depending on what color of fabric that you are using, you can use either. Creative Grids rulers are bigger than most of the other manufacturers. Like for instance, this ruler is 6.5 by 24.5. Most manufacturers would make a 6 by 24 ruler. I'm not sure why there's a 1/2 inch more on either end or either side, but that's the way it is. This ruler, the 6.5 by 24 inch, will make your life easier when you have purchased fabric off a bolt. So you've gone into the store, purchased a yard, for instance, and you're wanting to cut that fabric, so you need 2.5 inch strip. You're going to fold your fabric in half, selvage to selvage, so end to end. And this is the fancy end that has the name of the fabric published on it. You're going to fold that in half, make sure it's straight, lop off the right side, left side if you're left-handed, folks. Flip your fabric around, and you're going to use this ruler to cut those 2.5 inch strips out of that yard of fabric that you purchased. The other ruler that I highly suggest that you have, but this one isn't nearly as important because you could use the big one for the same function, but it's a little awkward, is a Creative Grids Terms 6.5 by 6.5 inch square. Again, other manufacturers make a 6 by 6 inch ruler. Again, don't understand the 1/2 inch, but whatever. This ruler you will use for a multitude of things. When you are cutting squares out of like the 2.5 inch strips that you have now cut out of your yardage that you bought, your 1 yard, and you need to cut it down to a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch square. You would use this, line up the bottom at the 2.5, line up the left, the right, hold on, line up here so that you're cutting at 2.5 inches and cut it off. And therefore you have a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch square. You can also use this ruler. Let me bring it up close. You will notice this diagonal black line. That diagonal black line is very important when you're doing things like cutting down half square triangles. Like that's a half square triangle. So when I made this, it was actually bigger than that size. And I used this ruler, lining up that black line with right along this diagonal. And I cut off what I needed to cut off. So this ruler is more of a cutting things smaller. The big ruler is for dealing with yardage. And you might be thinking, well, I'm never going to buy bigger than a fat quarter. Even a fat quarter, which is 18 by 20-ish, usually, it depends on how wide the fabric was, can be cut down with the 6.5 by 24.5 inch ruler. So these are really the two rulers that I recommend that every beginner starts with. Really, as I said, you can get away with just this. And I will tell you, rulers are not cheap. You want to invest in them once. And why I like Creative Grids is because there is a it's how do I explain this? It's kind of gritty along here, which allows me, when I put my hand on the ruler, it's not going to move. So that's why I prefer Creative Grids. I did have another brand in the past, and when I upgraded to Creative Grids a number of years ago, my old rulers went to my husband, who is an artist who could use them. So I recommend buying rulers once. Try not to buy lots of rulers that you won't need or you might use once, because nobody wants to do that. And I hope that helps.